Hello, everyone. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections. And tonight I have a real treat. We are going to be talking to Krueger, and he's amazing. He's been talking to me, and I'm saying we should go live, and he brings up another wonderful topic. And I listen to him, and again, I think we should go live, and we don't quite get there. So finally, I said, come on, let's just go live. He is amazing. He's going to tell us a little about his life, a lot about his work and his passions, but I have no idea what he's going to come up with. You guys, this is a treat beyond treats. I am thrilled. And I just want to remind you that this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace, one conversation at a time. Having said that, Kurt, please introduce yourself. This is too amazing.
Okay, I'm a little boy from Southern California, and I will pronounce Spanish the way it should be pronounced, because in Espanol, it is very, very beautiful language, just like any languages. That's the beauty of diversity. Now, when you talked about the Institute of Peace, in the 1980s, I had published an article in a magazine on peacemakers. And the only way to really have peace is to be peace. If we are not peaceful within ourselves and the world is peaceful, there's no peace for you. So the key factor for all of life is your experience. And guess who's in command of your experience? Your perception, your life, your experience is yours. I'm an identical twin. My brother that I was a womb mate with, we were competitive all the time, and we did get into sports, and he was a national champion. I was only an All-American swimmer in college, and so on and so forth. There was competition there. But we do not need to compete these days. The way life changes is through unity, is through cooperation, is through kindness and love. The way that you get into that state of mind that brings peace is to simply stop it. Stop thinking. When I tell a class that, especially middle schoolers, from like 11-year-olds to 14-year-olds, how are they going to stop thinking? Well, they've never even been taught how to concentrate. How do you concentrate? Has anybody here in this audience ever been taught how to concentrate in school? You might have learned it from a yogi, not a bogey. You might have learned it from maybe somebody, but on one hand, I can count the number of people that have ever been taught how to concentrate in a regular school. So I teach that to people all over the world. There's all kinds of techniques to learn concentration, because that's also part of one of the forms of yoga. There's four main forms. One is called Raja Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. That is the yoga that most people think of when people talk about yoga. It's sitting a certain way, it's breathing a certain way, it's a few things that some people may know about, but there's 8 steps of that yoga. We get to be able to find out how to be able to follow those steps. Some of us are Ashtanga yogis, some of us are Bhakti yogis, some of us are Karma yogis, some of us are Jnana yogis. If anybody wants to communicate with me through successsystemsinternational.net, I'll send you classical yoga. It will describe that. But I'm not here to talk about yoga. I'm here to talk about peace. Well, yoga does bring peace, but so do so many other things. And there's so many forms of meditation too. I used to teach a variety of forms of meditation. I still do. It's in my book called Winning Ways for Living. The variety of teachings about yoga, meditation, how to be able to deal with your emotions, nutrition. Some people know a lot about nutrition, and some people know a lot of wrong things about nutrition. When I was young, got to have so much protein to build those muscles and so on and so forth. Well, when I found out about real nutrition, endurance and strength can go up 50% when you get properly nourished, and that's just with proper supplementation. That was research from the Olympic Scientific Congress. Olympic Scientific Congress happens every 4 years. You don't see all those fingers. I got to get them in the way. And it's the most prestigious sports sciences conference in the world. I presented at one twice. I was a middle school or junior high school teacher when I did that. My last one in Seoul, Korea, was rated the best of the whole conference. And here I am, a junior high school teacher. There's academicians. There's these sports psychologists from all over the world. And mine was rated the best because it was a holistic approach. My first one was on meditation. The first one was in 1984. It was called Meditation and the Ultimate Performance in Sports. Because when you're in that state of calmness, in the flow, tapping the force, or in China, it's called the qi. In Japan, it's called the ki. When we tap that force, as they say in Star Wars, there's nothing you cannot do. When I say nothing, the only picture in my book is a picture of a man lifting over 7,000 pounds with one arm over his head. Now, at the 84 Olympic Scientific Congress, the man who was keynoting the whole sports psychology section of the conference was a man named Bob Beamon. He had long jumped almost 2 feet further than anybody ever did in history. They coined a word for that kind of an incredible physical experience. They called it Beamonesque, because it was this, people break by fractions of inches world records in long jump or high jump or shot put or all these different kinds of field events and other things in sports. Usually it's only by fractions of inches. This man, almost 2 feet. And in the middle of his jump, he would have been almost over my head. I'm only 6'1". He was said to be about 6 feet high in the air, in the middle of his jump. So what can't we do when we get into the flow, into the zone, into that tapping the force? There isn't anything. And again, if somebody wants to write me, I can send them a thing about this simple experience on meditation and the ultimate performance in sports. It's a one-page document. If you want to read more about it, you'd have to read the book Winning Ways for Living. But my purpose here is to educate you, not to have you buy books and everything. I'm not here for that. I'm here to be able to share what works for anybody to make life better. Because when we get you better, and I'm saying we, it takes two of us or more. We're a team. And when we believe this teamwork and collaboration and cooperation, I want you to get away from this talk today when you've heard something that rings a bell that I want to do this. Talk to one of your best friends. Get them to be your buddy about every day we're going to check in. I want to have done this for 20 minutes. I want to at least start out with 5 minutes or whatever it is that you do a day. Like I can give you something that's really, if you want a stress reducer really quickly, somebody cuts you off on the freeway, laugh. Laugh as fast and as loud as you can. Laugh as crazy as you can. And there's something called a machine gun laugh. I hate to use that term, but it sounds like it. Some people have the hee-haw laugh. Some people have the there's all kinds of laughs. You can experiment with your laugh because you got hooked onto a certain laugh and you've kept it for so long. It's time to experiment again. Life is all an experiment. I'll give you an example. I was down playing beach ball. I used to play beach ball in Southern California, the best beach in the world at that time. I only got up on number 1 court once. I mean, that was wow. The big key to volleyball is getting high and spiking straight down and things like that. This man, this nice African man, he had this incredible spike, but he landed wrong. You heard a pop that you don't ever want to hear. Oh my God. So in volleyball, you drag the person off the court so everybody can play. They'll play and you got to help this guy, which I don't mind because that's my seva. That's my selfless service. I'm like Mother Teresa in a way. I got to help those who need help. That's my karma. So I asked him if he would mind me seeing if I could help him. And he said, okay, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to put my hands on your knee very gently, and I'm going to guide you through a visualization. And that's one of the most used sports psychology practices. I had 5 offices of the Institute of Sports Psychology at one time, all over the world, on 4 continents. So I used this sports psychology practice and guided him through, okay, breathe nice and deeply and slowly through your nose because it'll bring the oxygen to the lower lobes of your lungs where most of the air sacs are. And that brings the oxygen to all the parts of your body. But your brain is really smart. Your brain is going to send most of it to where it's needed the most. And I guided him through this visualization for about 45 minutes. And for the first time in my life, I didn't say it out loud, I internally said, thank you, God, for having healed him. Like it was so. And it was an example that was given by a guy named Jesus in one of those books of one of the world scriptures. I've read most of the world scriptures. I haven't finished the Quran. For some reason, I can only read 3 pages at a time. I'm a Sufi, by the way. And in doing this, 45 minutes, periodically, I would just thank God for having healed him. 45 minutes later, he gets up and walks away. Nobody gets up from blowing their knee out. When you hear that kind of a pop, you know he's blowing his knee out, especially if you've played enough sports as I did and at the level that I did. But he did. Years later, I'm with a backpacking Boy Scout troop, and we're on a simple 6-mile hike. And periodically, you compact the line of boys to get them closer because they'll straggle here and straggle there. And one boy has a staff because he had twisted his ankle badly. So he needed a staff to walk. I said, would you mind to see if I could help you? And he agreed again. I did the same thing. He got up and walked away without the staff. If I can do it, what can't you do? Am I also created by that one creator, the great Father, Mother God? If that is so, we are all the children of God, which means the force can flow through us when we don't block it. If we block it, that's our fault. We just get to experiment with life. Little kids will experiment with everything. But as you get older, watch out. Oh, watch out, you'll fall. Oh. There's a book called The Continuum Concept. This woman went into the hinterlands of the Orinoco, northern South America, of this beautiful river area. It's just amazing rainforests and mountains. And they have to portage canoes that are super heavy because they're dugouts. They are heavy, heavy canoes. And on the way to this place, they would sometimes get pinned against the rocks by this canoe that, somebody fell a little bit and it knocked the canoe against them, and they're leaning against this super hot rock. And then when they get off of that rock, when the natives get off the rock, they start laughing and joking. But when the Westerners get off the rock, they're cursing. There's a big difference. A big difference in feeling, a big difference in conditioning. We are conditioned to feel things that we don't need to feel, think things are bad when we don't need to think they're bad, and to be able to live life connected with Mother Nature rather than abusing Mother Nature. We get to thrive when we act like we are all one. The indigenous people of North America and all the planet, the Aborigines in Australia and so on, have this concept that the human beings are just like the ants and the birds and the this and that. We're all part of ourselves. This is all part of life. We are all at one with life. And we can learn from our human body. Our human body can teach us a lot. Talk to Bruce Lipton if you get a chance to, or read his books, or watch his Gaia.com programs, or anything on YouTube with Dr. Bruce Lipton. He's out of Stanford University. I met him in the 1980s in Southern California. He's a great soul. He was doing research on stem cells in the 1980s. He got Petri dishes with the exact same identical, genetically exact stem cells into different Petri dishes with different kinds of organ tissues. So they were in different environments. These stem cells grew to what was their environment. They developed kidneys, or they developed the lungs, or whatever environment it was in. It's fascinating work. Now, that's what he did in the 80s. When you look at what's happening now, they found that healthy human cells are the best teacher in the world. If there's a cell around it nearby that is not healthy, like a homeless person, or somebody else that maybe needs a little help to get up, or whatever it might be, they help it. The only cell in the human body that does not do that is the one cell, the one kind of cell, I should say, that everybody fears. I can't say everybody. Most people fear. And that's cancer. So cancer is like some people feeding you fear. It's like some people feeding you anger. Is that the dark force? I may think so, but it's up to you whether you think so. There's a beautiful film made in the 1980s, I believe, by Hansen is his name. It's like got Muppets or something like that. It's called The Dark Crystal. When you see that film, it's sort of an adventure film, but it gives so many teachings in it that are beautiful. I used to show, and I can say it now because they can't fire me, I used to show a film that was rated R to 7th grade students in history class, because we were studying the Amazon or South America. And it showed a family. It's called the Emerald Forest by John Borman. It showed a family that the father was building a huge dam in the rainforest. They were cutting down and stripping and taking away the logs and burning them oftentimes. And they were just stripping this whole area. It's like a caterpillar on planet Earth. But it was eating all the trees. And this man has his family there, and his little boy, who's about 5 or 6 years old, starts wandering off, and they're out in the jungle while his father's with him on a picnic, but he wanted to show him where he's working and stuff like that. And the boy starts to wander off. He says, "Hey, don't go. I says, no, Dad, I'm just going to go a little bit. I won't go away. But this boy goes a little bit too far. And what happens? The invisible people take him. And for 10 years, this father searches for him every break that he has and finally finds him. So here's this boy, 15 or 16 years old. He's falling in love with a native girl because that's the only girls out there. And he was a native. When you look at this film, you'll understand he was raised and felt like and acted like a native. Again, he was in this environment like that cell that we were talking about with Bruce Lipton. His father says, come back with me. Son says no. So the dad goes back. But then the fierce people, I'm not going to describe more of the movie, excuse me. That's not my point. But the idea is it's about the environment. It's about thriving life and how to be able to live life joyfully, about modern times and ancient times, and so on and so forth. There's so much in that movie that I must have seen that at least 50 to 100 times. It was so well made. And it had so much effect. As soon as there was top nudity shown on the screen, because these are native people, the kids, both boys and girls, would start to chuckle. And I'd stop the film and we'd talk. And I'd say, why are you chuckling? And so on and so forth. We worked it out and give them an understanding of these. It's like when I looked at National Geographic magazine many years ago, when that's all we had was magazines. We didn't have the beautiful National Geographic online or in movies or anything like that. They understood that it was all our culture that was looking at it that way, that it's not evil, it's not dark, it's part of life. And when we have that idea that we're all part of life, that we can thrive and grow, what is it that we can't do? We can live happily, peacefully, meditatively, in the present. I'll give you another point, because I am a tangentialist. I go on tangents, as you can see. Time. Some people say, oh, it's 11:11. Wow, it means this is special. When we had circular time instead of analog time, instead of linear time, we had circular time. What goes around comes around. What goes around comes around. It keeps going. There's birth, there's death. There's birth, there's death. It was much different. But guess what? Time destroyed something. Something that people want very much now, to be present. To be present with each other. To be heard. To feel their heart. To tune in to that which makes life worth living. It isn't YouTube. It isn't social media. When you see, I just corrected myself. Instead of saying if, I say when. When you see a film called The Social Dilemma, you'll understand why I say that it is absolutely horrendous what people are doing with social media. Not the people necessarily using it to the degree that they think they're doing good, bad, or ugly. But when you see this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. The Social Dilemma. It's on Netflix. It is made with some of the top people in all the fields, including some of the top people in the social media field. And for a reason, because of ethical concerns. It's destroying countries. It's pitting everybody against each other. There used to be usually a balance of, in America, of Republican and Democrat and so on. It used to just be and people talked across the aisle. People settled some things. They could work together. Now it's like, yeah, it's my way or no way. It's the highway for you because we got more of me. And you're evil. And if you're evil, who's going to ever listen to somebody who's calling them evil? Who's going to listen to somebody who thinks they're pontificating, I'm always right? It's hard to do that. We have to have, we get to have soft ears. Now, I'm going to point out my corrections because I'm getting used to using empowering words more and more in my life. It is so important that we use inclusive words, like as if we're the Queen of England. It's about we, because we includes me. But it's all my relations, according to the Native Americans. All my relations is not only my immediate family, not only my extended family, not only my friends, not only my community, not only this country, but the world and the planet, the winged and the four-leggeds and the swimmers and all that kind of stuff. All of us are related because we're all related to the one that created us. And when we show respect and love, my best teacher I'd ever had in my life told me a simple thing to do. He said, see God in each other and know that God dwells within you as you. When you see God in each other, you're in heaven. When you know that God dwells within you as you, you experience God as one. Instead of being a drop, you're the ocean. The teacher of Rama, who is said in Hinduism to be God incarnate, like Jesus. Rama's going to go take over the kingdom. After he learned from his teacher in the jungles, Rama, this prince of the big king, this prince had to learn from Vashishta everything that he could teach because he was his guru. And that's with a capital G. He was going to teach him how to be a great king, but he had to first learn how to make his little hut, just like the Adivasis or the common people, the poor people live in India. You have cow dung floors. Why do you have cow dung floors? It insulates you from the earth. So when it's hot out, you're not so hot. When it's cold out, you're not so cold, and so on and so forth. Just before he goes, and he learned the archery and, warriorship and all that stuff. Just before he goes off to take over the kingdom, he asked his guru, what is your highest teaching? And his guru said one thing: the world is as you see it. He was the first psychologist, because your perception of the world is exactly your perception. I was on the hijacked airplane. I was in the same situation as everybody else. There was automatic weapons, hand grenades, plastic explosives. There was all kinds of fear. For 45 minutes, my mind was going a little crazy. We had to have our hands behind our head and so on and so forth. I could describe that another time because I can talk all day. I've done 6-hour workshops, I can do them 5 days in a row or what. I do weekend programs. We get to learn so much because life is worth living and learning all the time. I have not stopped learning. I participate in Humanity Rising every day. And I say I participate because I'm awake at the time. It's 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Pacific time. And you look up Humanity Rising. It's the 100th edition tomorrow, I believe. It's on the equinox, so that's really great. And we get to be able to find out all the great things that are happening in the world that uplift humanity, that are making life better, like donut economics or circular economics, or the ideas of helping people have a $50 surgery for cataracts to give poor people in India sight to be able to see their families and to be able to work again, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great things. When we bring peace to the world, that's magical. The biggest threat to us right now is twofold: nuclear weapons and climate change, or global warming, however you want to term it. Look at Drawdown. It's a book by Paul Hawken, or look at his video on YouTube. At the end of his talk, he gives 100 most efficacious ways to reverse global warming. 100 most efficacious ways. Guess what number 6 is? I bet you won't guess. Go ahead.
I have no idea.
Educating women.
That, to me, that makes a lot of sense.
Women who are educated have less children. They also educate the children better. They share their heart more, and so on and so forth. They are the ones that allow life to thrive, to be, instead of just survive. The men are off about survival to get this and that for the family and so on. And we do what we get to do. When you read each chapter about why this is the most efficacious, or the next most and the next most, you'll understand why women are up at number 6. And you won't most likely guess number 1, but that's another story. Number 10 is rooftop solar. And we used to have I was living in the early 90s in a place in New Mexico, and if you blinked at 25 miles an hour, you'd miss our turnoff in the hills. And so we were totally off the grid. We had solar, and we chopped wood and carried water. We had well water. It was a beautiful, pristine environment. And this is what we can bring back to the planet. There's ways. We just change our system. Bucky Fuller talked about it. We create a new system because we've been at the super destructive, unrestricted capitalism. We let all these companies. I was at a place called Aliso Canyon in California. It was a big leak of methane out of one of these oil storage areas. Huge. It made thousands of people sick. We were there picketing, and a truck comes speeding up to be able to go in through the gate that we were picketing at. And luckily, there was one man that stood with his arm outreached, and he had this arm straight out, and the truck literally stopped just before it touched his hand. He would have run over about 20 people. He got arrested, but I don't know if he got prosecuted. He should have been prosecuted and put in jail for doing what he did. It's like attempted murder. He didn't want to murder somebody, but he's going to go through those people that would have murdered somebody. But because it's a oil company, because it's got those bucks that pay off people, the payola. We talk about India being bakshish, here bakshish, I don't need a ticket, here's some money here. The payola is something that's happened in America. Look at representus.us, represent.us. You can search it, whatever search engine you use, represent us. So represent.us. And you'll see a video that will describe how to get rid of things that are called corruption, like gerrymandering, like payola, like corporations can pay people to be able to go on trips around here, there, and everywhere and get this law suddenly passed. How's our time going for us, Carla?
Well, to be honest with you, you are over the 30-minute mark.
Okay. Inshallah, as God wills it.
You can continue, but I'm not sure. We can also, I know you want to be at another event.
Well, also, I have my wife to take care of. She does have positive results with COVID, as well as the 3 other members of my family. So I've been taking care of my wife and keeping the house going and doing what I need to do for everybody. And this is a gift.
Yeah, there's a question that I have for you. Can I ask quickly?
You never need to ask permission of me.
I have been walking with a walker. It's a long story, but it's time for me to get rid of it. What is the best way to change my mindset to get rid of it even immediately?
Know that it's done. Know that it is so. And walk confidently. Now, you can do something that takes a little bit longer. It's called visualization. There's a scripture in just a second, my wife just said, all right, am I done?
You can talk later, but I would like you're right.
But in regard to there's a scripture called the Pratya Bidya Hridayam. It's translated by Christopher Wallace, and it's a book that is called the Recognition Sutras. So you recognize who you really are. There's 112 different visualization practices created 1,100 years ago. I think it was by Vasaguptacharya. I might be wrong on his name. It might be a Abhinavagupta, one of those two, in Kashmir, and that's why it was called Kashmir Shaivism. It's the tantric school, the real tantra, not the sexual bullshit. Excuse my French, but and it will give you guidelines on really how to transform your life. My book has different ways to visualize too, and describes many things. Pythagoras's practice is very good to do. And again, that's described in the book. Just last week on Humanity Rising, a woman gave the most outstanding presentation on Pythagoras and Hildegard of Bingen. Hildegard of Bingen produced more songs than anybody in history. This was in the Dark Ages. And it was around the time that Chartres Cathedral was built, that exact same time. She learned so much in 30 years of total isolation. If you think it's bad with COVID, a few months, she was 30 years in 2 rooms. 2 rooms for 30 years. Just like one of these shamans that I know that I got influenced with down in Colombia, in the Sierra Nevadas in Colombia. I had the most profound experience with this guy, but he learned by spending his first 6 or 8 years of his life in a cave with his mother and a shaman, a medicine man. He felt Mother Earth. Pythagoras was in a cave for a long time on Samos. He got not only the Pythagoras practice, he was a great mathematician, we call him, and geometrist, but he also coined the word cosmos. He knew the vibration. He had planned how to be able to have what became the Benedictine practices of the monks of the Middle Ages. They would meditate to start off the day. They would then pray. They would then read and study. And they would then, at the end of the day, they would chant these songs. And the vibration, the cosmic vibration, that Om or Amen. There's a book called The Essential Unity of All Religions by Bhagwan Das of India. It's a thick book, but it gives you scriptural quotes from all the different religions about the same kind of thing, like this Om or Amen. It's fascinating. I read that in the 70s.
Can we have a conversation about this later? I know